As we discussed yesterday, the Covenant School Shooters Journal was published by the Tennessee Star, and the shooter's writings shed light on her poor mental state in the months leading up to the shooting. And here to discuss is Michael Patrick Leahy, the CEO of the Tennessee Star. So thank you so much for joining us. So what should Americans be taking away from the writings in this journal?
This is a massive failure of our mental health system. And I think it's that failure, which we've documented in all of our reporting since this tragic killing took place on March 27th, 2023, when 28-year-old Audrey Elizabeth Hale, biological female who self-identified as a transgender male, walked into her former elementary school and murdered three 9-year-olds and 3 staff members. And then a couple of minutes later, she was killed and turned by Metro Nashville Police Department. We've been trying to get these documents in court really since May of 2023 with no success. In June of 2024, we legally obtained these documents from a source familiar with the investigation, and we began writing stories about it. We didn't publish it at that time because there were some legal challenges that we had to take care of before we published it. We finally resolved those challenges to our satisfaction, and then we published all 90 pages of the journal she maintained for the last 3 months of her life, which she left in her vehicle and was recovered by Metro Nashville Police Department on the day of the murders.
Michael, I want to get into the legal saga here and kind of the story of what you've gone through in the last few years. But I also wanted to first talk about this in kind of a editorial type way, the moral dilemma that people have gone back and forth with over the last few years. So just full disclosure, here at Blaze Media, around the time, I believe, of the Parkland shooting, it was decided not to publish, words from manifestos such as this. And when I look back, I think a lot of people thought similarly at the time. I certainly would have. I feel, though, that something has changed in the intervening years. And in fact, as the article you saw on the screen earlier, we did publish. We changed that policy. We are publishing, snippets from the manifesto that you published. So I'm curious, what your thought process is on this and how you approach these things, and if you think anything has changed, since Parkland and today.
It's a good question. I'm a journalist, and if a document should be available to the public, I want it, and I want to report on it. This is a matter of public interest. What is the motivation behind these mass murders committed by very troubled people, and what's the public policy solution to it? I think that's a very important part of the discussion. We believe that we have served the public interest by demonstrating the very confused state of mind that Audrey Elizabeth Hale had, and the absolute total failure of the mental health system to treat her for her difficulties. And in fact, we've reported that she's been under psychiatric care at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. She was under that care for 22 years. She was also taking very strong SSRI drugs since 2019. Those will have an impact on a person. And I think that really the whole public discussion about this has been misdirected. They try to make it about gun control. The real issue here is how our children are suffering from mental illness and not being treated properly, and how they're being overprescribed with psychiatric drugs.
With that in mind, when you look at the 90 pages that you guys did publish from that journal, what was one of the things that really stood out to you and grabbed your attention and has stuck with you?
Every page of her writing told you a story. And the story is, this was a young woman in great psychological distress, calling out for help. In fact, a couple of mental health professionals, therapists, have looked at it since the publication of it, and they all said the same thing. She was crying out for help, and she wasn't getting it. She hated herself. She hated her parents. She wanted to kill her father. She had suicidal ideation, and she had this bizarre idea that she was born into the wrong body. She thought that she was a boy without a penis. And that developed a whole series of disturbing dark thoughts in her mind.
I want to just applaud you for everything you've been through and what you've done. It's a remarkable story, and I hope and pray it ends well. I think it will. I think it already has. I want you to talk about that, though, to our audience. I mean, explain what the last few years have been like. Our own Steve Baker, I know, was out there to visit your trial a while back, right? So tell us. Give us that story of what you've been through and how this came about.
So the story really is that we're just a journalistic organization seeking documents which the public has a right to see. And at every level, the local government has obstructed those desires, as has the FBI. In fact, the Metro Nashville Police Department has claimed for well over a year that the investigation is ongoing. They claimed in court in March it would be over by the end of June. Well, here we are at the beginning of September. They're still claiming it. It's basically a stalling tactic because they don't want this information out. This has really just been not that much heavy lifting except basic journalism until in June of 2023, the presiding judge in the state case, with no basis of fact, hauled me into court on June 17th in a show cause hearing order to explain to her why she shouldn't hit me with contempt of court charges. She claimed that perhaps there was a court order that she'd issued that I violated. There was no such order. When that hearing began and Steve Baker was in the courtroom with me that very day, he was in the audience, I was front and center. The judge refused to address the issue that she said was a show cause hearing order. In fact, she went around the room and talked to everybody else's attorney, and said, is there still an issue here to determine? When she finally got to my attorney after an hour and 5 minutes, he said, Your Honor, what's the underlying court order here that you're claiming may have been violated? We're not going to address that right now. And he said, well, I've got this show cause hearing order right here that says address that. And she told him to sit down. And so that was, it was Kafkaesque, right here in America.
Well, we will be praying for you. Thank you so much for what you have done and what I'm sure you will continue to do with this story.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Michael.
And when you look at it, it's free speech all over the world, right? And it's right here in the United States. We take it for granted, but even with just court cases like this happening, you can't take that for granted.
Yeah, I think what Michael said in the end is right. Is this is basic journalism, or should be. And there were moments when it looked like maybe they weren't going to allow that to happen in this case, which would have been absolutely ridiculous, because we know they would have leaked it if the politics were different.